Prepare to have your health questions answered here on Safe, Effective Natural Solutions with Dr. Todd Binkley, owner of Binkley Healing Center in downtown Ventura. Now, here's Dr. Todd.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Todd Binkley, board-certified doctor of non-force chiropractic and practitioner of functional medicine. Functional medicine means finding conditions other doctors miss by doing more comprehensive testing, usually, and always doing more progressive analysis of those tests to identify things that otherwise fall under the radar, where things that, for example, your liver or your kidneys or your immune system need a little extra support. Perhaps you need more protein in your diet. Perhaps you need to simply get a little bit more exercise. There are a whole host of things that just normally do not get come to the surface when you get a standard medical workup. Little things that maybe you've heard about before even, but it's never just one thing. That's the most important thing. One of the most important things to understand is if you have a problem that is not being resolved to your satisfaction, it's not one thing. It's never just one thing that you need to discover and fix. It's usually a bunch of little things that are usually relatively easy to fix, correct, with better food, exercise, and supplements. Today we're going to talk about true healing. There's some exciting things that came out in the medical press written by eminent physicians that talk about what's missing from modern medicine, true healing. So I'm excited to talk about that. We're also going to get into some of the latest research on the importance of exercise, especially exercise designed to build muscle strength. But before we do that, here is a quote from ancient Egypt. Did you know that in ancient Egypt, for a headache, doctors prescribed goose fat rubbed into the eyes with a helping of donkey liver? No, I'm not making this up. It comes directly from the Kahun papyrus on which was recorded actual medical practice in ancient Egypt. Goose fat rubbed into the eyes with a helping of donkey liver for headache. Well, regardless of whatever your doctor has recommended, if you're not happy with the care you're getting, there are other options. So this is exciting. A prominent medical doctor. Well, this headline for this report in MedPage today, the headline reads, Spotting Trends in Patients' Tests. Well, I've translated that into my own headline as follows. Prominent MD discovers what's missing from medicine, treating people instead of conditions. He goes on to suggest that in the article, he suggests that there should be an easy way to monitor relative changes over time, instead of just waiting until the results on one test are outside the standard broad medical range, basically until obvious disease that requires medical care presents itself. Well, there is a name for this. It's called functional medicine. I track all of my patients' tests over time, many going back 10 years or more. I haven't taken a poll, but I imagine most of my functional medicine colleagues do the same. So what does this say about mainstream medicine? If you're constantly being handed off from one physician to another when a shift changes at the hospital, or you renew your insurance, or you simply get fed up yourself and choose to change doctors. I'm sure lots of mainstream medical doctors track their patients' results over time, but apparently not enough, according to Dr. Fred Pelsman, Associate Professor of Medicine at Cornell University in New York City, now called Weill Cornell. He's been a practicing internist for 30 years, and he's the medical director of Cornell Internal Medicine Associates. So he says, for example, if someone's hemoglobin, a standard blood test, someone's hemoglobin can drop from the upper limit of normal all the way to the lower limit of normal, a really significant span, literally representing the loss of about a third of a body's total blood volume, without anything being highlighted as abnormal. And of course, that's true. That's what I mean when I say the broad medical range. If you're just outside this range or just inside this range, then you're told you're fine. If you're just outside, you might have disease next week, you might drop dead next week, but you're told you're fine if everything is within the broad medical ranges. They're designed to diagnose and treat full-blown disease that may require pharmaceuticals or some other type of medical treatment. So Dr. Pelsman goes on and says, what happens when things are slowly changing, clinically inching along, moving in small steps in the wrong direction? And he goes on to list an example. He quoting Dr. Perman here. About a year ago, a patient came in with worsening renal function, kidney function, and looking back over the last year's worth of labs, he saw an insidious decline in their estimated glomerular filtration rate. This is just a standard kidney test measuring the effectiveness of your kidney function as a filter, filtering your blood. He goes on to note that over a decade ago, this patient's creatinine had been on the low side of normal. Creatinine's another standard kidney test. It's produced by the breakdown of muscle tissue. So he says it's over a decade ago, it's been on the low side of normal, and every year it had been inching up only in teeny increments that are hardly noticeable one at a time. But when you graph it out over a longer period, you could see this inexorable climb from 0.4 to 0.6, 0.7, 0.9, 1.0, 1.2, 1.4, and then suddenly it hits 1.5, and the system flags it with a little red arrow. Alarm bells went off, and people started to panic. And I'm still quoting Dr. Pelsman here. He says, it might be nice if we could figure out a way to spot these trends, catch these changes before they lead to irreversible harm. If we can catch these trends before they lead to irreparable harm, maybe we can interject earlier, stop a medicine or over-the-counter treatment that may be harmful, or start something that may protect their kidneys, maybe order additional testing to make sure nothing truly bad is going on. So, of course, what he's describing is what functional medicine practitioners do with all of their patients. For example, here's a 55-year-old man that came to me with elevated BUN, blood urea nitrogen. Nitrogen is produced by the breakdown of protein in the body. This is a 55-year-old man who looks totally fit and healthy, and he has no symptoms. My favorite kind of patient. He just came in. He wanted to check and make sure everything was okay. He was interested in prevention. If there are any medical doctors listening out there, yes, people actually come in with no symptoms and pay to make sure that they're as healthy on the inside as they look and feel on the outside. So this man initially had a number of things. A slight iron overload. His ferritin level was 339. That's a little elevated. He had a low white blood cell count and extremely low vitamin D in his blood. Interestingly, his serum protein was also low. So 2 years later, his ferritin had gone up to 405, which can cause damage to the kidneys and the liver. His blood urea nitrogen, the kidney test, one of the kidney tests, had inched up another notch from 18 to 19. Most doctors would ignore this, really, until it gets to 20, the blood urea nitrogen. So he came back 6 months later, and his ferritin was now down to 253, still a little high, but relatively safe for his liver, heart, and kidneys, because he had donated a pint of blood. That's what I told him to do when he came in the first time. Go donate a pint of blood, and that will bring your ferritin down. Well, even though we reduced that stress on his kidneys, his BUN was now up to 27. It jumped 8 points, and is 7 points outside the broad medical range, highlighted in red on the report. And I asked him, are you doing anything different? Are you eating a lot of protein, for example? Among other things, I asked him a bunch of questions about his diet. But basically, he revealed that he'd begun taking a couple of protein shakes every day. So in addition to the food in his diet, he was taking around 180 grams of powdered protein from one of these cheap, crappy muscle-building shakes that you see in stores, full of sugar, cheap vitamins and stimulants. And to top it off, his protein level was still low. It had gone down from his previous test. His previous test was just a little bit higher, still low. So he's clearly not absorbing this protein, and it was stressing his kidneys for no good reason. So I recommended some betaine hydrochloric acid. This is a supplement you can take to supplement the acid produced in the stomach to help absorb the protein that he's eating, mostly chicken and fish, some beef. And a year later, retested, his kidneys were better. His protein was now up to the perfectly healthy range. But his iron had started to creep back up again. And his kidney tests were about the same as the year before, still just a little bit high. And his vitamin D was a lot lower. So he'd obviously stopped taking the 5,000 units of vitamin D I recommend every day for most adults. So this time he took all of the supplements I recommended, and he donated a pint of blood to bring the ferritin down. And 6 months later, his kidney function is back to normal, his protein is good, his vitamin D is well into the healthy range. And this whole time, he's never had any symptoms at all. He's just interested in prevention. So that's one of my favorite types of patients. So here's a final word from Dr. Pelsman. He says, it's true, not everything that's flagged as bad is bad. But it's also true that not everything that's still in the normal range is as normal as we think. So building systems to help us spot and keep track of trends will likely help us take better care of patients in the endless noise of data we receive from all these tests. I'm Dr. Todd Binkley. You're listening to Safe, Effective, Natural Solutions to Almost Any Health Challenge. Here's another and even more encouraging piece in the medical press titled Reclaiming the Healer's Art in Medicine. This is written by Thomas McGinn, MD, Master of Public Health, Professor of Medicine at Baylor College of Medicine in Houston. He says, Dr. McGinn says to be a healer is not merely to deliver care, but to create comfort. Yes, science is central, but healing encompasses something greater: wisdom, empathy, curiosity, and the ability to sit, literally and metaphorically, with our patients. Healing happens in the relationships. Today, the vocation of healer feels endangered. Administrative pressures, clinical throughput demands, getting as many people in a small amount of time as possible, technological overload are pushing healing to the margins. Physicians have become data input machines and begun to compartmentalize ourselves, turning on and off, losing continuity not only of care, but of presence. This is Dr. McGinn, professor of medicine at the Baylor College of Medicine in Houston. He goes on to say, our task, I believe, is to reclaim the space for healing. As leaders, we must relieve the burdens that keep clinicians from their calling. We must re-engineer the system to make room for curiosity, culture, time, and attention. Healing cannot be scaled. It must be protected, nurtured, and practiced. This is amazing, right? This is a really great idea. I hope all doctors are reading this. He goes on, as we reimagine that system, we must also recognize that technology, often seen as the culprit in depersonalizing care, can, if deployed with intention, become part of the solution. One example is the emergence of ambient artificial intelligence assisted scribe technology. Well, that's a mouthful, but these are tools that are now capable of capturing the clinical conversation in real time, allowing documentation to fade in the background and enabling clinicians to return their full gaze to the patient in front of them. Imagine a clinical visit where you no longer type or click through screens, but instead sit eye to eye with the patient, unhurried, as the chart writes itself in the background. This isn't science fiction, it's happening now. But the impact of these tools depends on how we implement them. We must ensure that such technology is used to augment healing, not just improve time management. So technology should serve to enhance the patient-physician relationship, not replace it. When it does, it can restore one of the most vital and currently endangered elements of clinical care, human connection. And he closes with this. In this moment, when trust in science is under attack, we need to recenter the healer, not just as a clinician, but as a voice of wisdom, science, and hope. Well, here, I say, kudos to you, Dr. Thomas McGinn at Baylor College of Medicine in Houston. Healing has always been at the central focus of my practice. It's right there in the name of my office, Binkley Healing Center. And I'm privileged. One of the most consistent remarks I get when a new patient comes in is how warm and comfortable my office feels. Well, you're immediately greeted upon entering by the smiling face of my wonderful assistant, Victoria. And whenever you choose to consult with me, you will receive the wisdom gleaned from my 35 years in practice. We will sit together eye to eye. You will have my empathy and curiosity and my full attention. It costs a lot less than you might imagine to take responsibility of your own health and get a little help along the way if you're not getting the care you need. Shoot me an email at drbinkley@binkleyhealingcenter.com. You can even text me at 805-218-3939. If you're surprised that I'm giving my cell phone out on the air, please note that the ringer on my phone is always off. But I will reply if you leave a text. I'll even reply to a voicemail, though it may take a day or two because I often forget to check voicemails. But I'd love to hear from you. Send me your questions, things that you'd like to hear about on this show, for example. Moving on to the subject of strength, building and maintaining muscle strength. So this is a study titled Hand Grip Strength and Trajectories in Preclinical Obesity. Well, I've retitled this. My summary of this title is Reduce the Damaging Effects of Obesity by Building and Maintaining Muscle Mass and Strength. So grip strength is something that you can measure with a little tool called a dynamometer. It's just a tool that you squeeze in your hand, and it got a little dial that measures your grip strength. So it's a standard tool that's been around for many, many years, decades. And grip strength, this article was in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism from October of 2025, just came out. Grip strength has been increasingly recognized as a predictor of chronic disease risk and mortality. So this is based on data from the UK Biobank, a nationally representative and continuously updated biomedical database in the United Kingdom, and comprising over 500,000 participants who were recruited from 2006 to 2010 in England, Scotland, and Wales. Muscle strength more accurately, their main conclusion is that muscle strength more accurately reflects body composition distribution compared to standard measurements like BMI, And specifically, the people with more muscle strength had much less abdominal obesity. We're going to come back to that, but abdominal obesity is the main focus. It's the worst kind of obesity you can have. It's much more important to not have obesity in your abdomen than any other part of your body. So additionally, individuals with higher grip strength exhibited significantly decreased levels of hemoglobin A1C, which is a measure of your blood sugar over 3 months, a standard diagnostic test for diabetes. And individuals with higher grip strength also had lower triglyceride levels. So triglycerides is fat in your bloodstream that creates an inflammatory response. So this means that if you have greater grip strength, it's going to improve your body's ability to handle sugar and fat, which is going to result in less abdominal obesity. Another similar study showed that, in fact, reduced grip strength is associated with increased risk of type 2 diabetes, including elevated hemoglobin A1C levels. So the people with the highest grip strength, unsurprisingly, reported greater engagement in regular physical activity. Interestingly, far fewer of them smoked, currently or in the past. And other studies have shown that smoking is a strong determinant of declining muscle strength. So this strong correlation between grip strength and the progression of obesity and mortality, disease-causing death, may be explained by several mechanisms. They go on to say, firstly, obesity directly impairs organs and tissues. It accumulates around your organs and tissues, contributes to limitations in activities of daily living, meaning you're going to exercise less. Second, the people with the most grip strength have significantly lower CRP levels. Well, CRP is a standard test that I do on all of my patients. It's a well-established biomarker for systemic inflammation. Inflammation throughout your body has been linked to an increased risk of cardiovascular mortality and metabolic disorders like diabetes and fatty liver disease. So many previous studies have showed that reduced muscle strength is strongly associated with elevated CRP levels, increased inflammation from that fat around the belly. It's the fat around the belly obesity is actually a chronic low-grade inflammatory state. This oversized adipose fat tissue attracts immune cells, things called monocytes and macrophages, which in turn promote the secretion of pro-inflammatory cytokines such as tumor necrosis factor and interleukin-6. These are a mouthful, but these are pro-inflammatory. When you say what people often ask me, what is inflammation? Literally, what is that? Well, it's a process that's designed to heal you in a crisis, but it often gets put in overdrive. And if you remember people dying from COVID, they used to get, many of them died from a cytokine storm that would just overwhelm their lungs and their cardiovascular systems and result in their death. So cytokines are a type of pro-inflammatory chemical, and they lead to local or systemic inflammation everywhere in your body, as well as oxidative stress. Thirdly, this is the third reason, the third effect, connection between strength and obesity, skeletal muscle itself, your regular muscles, your biceps and your muscles throughout your body. That system of muscles is an active endocrine organ that secretes chemicals. Your muscles secrete chemicals that regulate blood sugar and insulin sensitivity. So if you reduce muscle mass or strength, it interferes with proper energy metabolism. Reduced muscle strength has also been shown to be strongly associated with reduced bone density and directly with cardiovascular disease. So, in summary, reduce the damaging effects of obesity by building and maintaining muscle mass and strength. How do you do that? Lift weights. Do any kind of weight-bearing exercise will help build and maintain bone density and muscle mass. Something as simple as grabbing a hold of a handrail. This is one of the things I teach my elderly patients if they're too frail to go to a gym and just want something simple they can do at home. The muscles in your legs are the biggest muscles in your body, and doing something as simple as holding on to a handrail or the edge of your kitchen sink and slowly bending your legs, squatting down and up, not going further than 90 degrees for your knees, making sure it doesn't hurt your knees, but also holding on so there's no risk of falling, and going really, really slowly. When I show this, people like to squat down slow and then they jump back up. But if you want a simple exercise to increase muscle mass, if you're older, if you want to give somebody you love something that they can do, somebody you love who would benefit from more muscle mass and strength, you can do squats at home, holding on to something so they're not going to fall back. And also, the most important thing is to go down slowly and, most importantly, come up really slowly. And that's going to help build muscle strength. It also helps with your balance. It's going to build muscle mass and maintain muscle mass and strength in your legs. Here's another study titled Cardiometabolic Outcomes Among Adults with Abdominal Obesity and Normal Body Mass Index. The most common test to measure body composition is the BMI, Body Mass Index. And this is basically just more evidence that fat in your gut is the worst kind of fat. And how do you reduce it? Well, not with sit-ups, not with doing core exercises. Getting rid of fat around your belly, you have to do that. You have to get rid of fat everywhere in your body and build muscle mass. So think of reduced time-restricted eating or intermittent fasting. Think of try eating breakfast and lunch, and or only a lot of people. I only eat breakfast and lunch. I always forget. Most people skip breakfast that do time restricted eating or intermittent fasting. They skip breakfast and only eat lunch and dinner, so that they're only eating 6 to 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, and leaving the other 12 to 16 hours a day for their body to rest and digest. So I recommend not eating right before you go to bed. You don't need food to sleep. You need food in the morning. I eat a hearty breakfast in the morning. I recommend it for other people as well to eat some hearty, healthy, savory protein in the morning and eat a big lunch. But however you want to do it, if you just spend less time eating and digesting your food every 24 hours, then it tends to make it easier to build and maintain muscle mass and save less fat. So yeah, you can't reduce fat from your belly, but just reducing the time that it takes for you to digest your food and the calories, fewer junk carbs, and then, of course, doing cardiovascular exercise and weight training to build and maintain muscle mass. So this was a study that came out in October of 2025, just came out in Journal of the American Medical Association. This is a study of 471,000 participants around the world. 22% had normal weight abdominal obesity. So that means they're not overweight at all. They have normal weight, but they have a belly. They have excess fat around their abdomen and, relatively probably not as heavy in their arms and legs, other part of their body. So normal weight abdominal obesity was consistently associated with increased hypertension, diabetes, high total cholesterol, and elevated triglycerides all over the world. So again, these are people who are not overweight. They have a normal weight, a reasonable body mass index, a reasonable weight for their height and size, but they have more fat around the middle of the body. And just that changed. 22% of the people around the world that had that had dramatically increased risk of high blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol, and triglycerides. So this shows basically that abdominal visceral fat is a stronger estimate of cardiometabolic risk than BMI because of the inflammation. Because of the inflammation, chronic inflammation, systemic inflammation around the body, and the metabolic effects, meaning the increased risk of diabetes and related disease conditions, the effects of diabetes on the liver and the kidneys, for example. So normal weight abdominal obesity is defined as a normal body mass index, BMI, of 18.5 to 24.9. And you can just Google body mass index and punch in your weight and your height, and it'll calculate it before you. But it'll calculate it for you. The formula is your weight in kilograms divided by your height in meters squared. So yeah, just Google BMI, punch in your weight and your height, and you'll get your BMI. So these are people that have normal BMI of between 18 and 25, say, but with a waist circumference of greater than 31 and a half inches for a female, and greater than 37 inches for a male. So if you have a normal BMI, but a waist bigger than 31 and a half inches for a woman or 37 inches for a man, then you have abdominal obesity and you have a much increased risk, a much higher likelihood to have high blood pressure, diabetes, high total cholesterol, and triglycerides, and the resultant increased risk of cardiovascular disease and death. Well, we are once again out of time. I don't know where the time goes. As always, thank you for tuning in. Come check out my talk on toxins at my office this Wednesday at 6 p.m. And remember, the health of your body is always more important than any disease you've been diagnosed with. Have a fantastic weekend.
You've been listening to Safe, Effective Natural Solutions with Dr. Todd Binkley. If you have a health question you want discussed on the show, email your health questions to Dr. Binkley at binkleyhealingcenter.com. Take advantage of this opportunity to ask questions for yourself and for your loved ones, because our health matters. Join him next Friday at 2 p.m. for Safe, Effective Natural Solutions here on 98.3 FM the word.